Here is a truth for anyone and everyone in the world looking to make a decision. And that is the amount of information available to you for any one decision you'll ever make in your life is infinite, never ending, and vast beyond your wildest dreams, thoughts, and imaginations. So the message, simply, whatever you're thinking to do for yourself, whatever it is you see you want to do, whatever action you want to take, start now. And we can seriously end the video now, move forward, and make some progress, because the reality to the life you seek, the compensation you desire at scale on any level, whether it be materially, monetarily, spiritually, any sort of fulfillment you seek, requires the greatest form of payment, which is through wisdom. Read a book, any book, watch a movie, any movie, talk a God, any God, prophets, etc. It is the wisdom they have that allows them to be compensated at the highest levels available to us in life. And whatever it is you want to do right now, whether it's a career goal, whether it's a physical goal, whether it's a relational goal, whether it's a spiritual goal, whether it's a monetary goal, whatever it is that you see for yourself, the only action you need to take is now. And if you inundate and overcompensate for that fact by trying to gain more knowledge, here's some of the limitations that come along with that logic. We talk regularly about the frustrations we have as people because we're constantly overthinking. And the reality around some of the laws, whether it be a hermetic law or universal law, something along the lines of the law of least effort, which implies thinking less, taking more action, which then allows you to actually think more clearly about what you're doing, right? When you really balance it out. When you're on a path to seek knowledge, you are getting it from someone who has already accomplished whatever it is you're looking to accomplish. Here's the fallback to that. Albeit it's beneficial because they're going to teach you some things you didn't know. But here's the reality to when you seek information from someone who is not you and use that to either start or stop or don't do anything, which a lot of us just get paralyzed. That person, if you haven't realized it, has a different set of circumstances, a different set of gifts, a different set of skills, a different environment, different genetics, on and on and on. And so as you're looking to these experts, which again I think are valuable, but if you're leveraging too much information to make your decision, then you're making a decision based on what someone else has or hasn't done that has an entirely different set of circumstances than you. And in order for you to learn what it is you need to do to be successful, you're not going to get it all through a book. It is why, generationally, when you look at some of the frustrations from younger millennials or people who have a piece of paper that quantify knowledge and they get into the workforce and they get hired, they get some responsibilities, they think they deserve a certain level of compensation based on what they think they already know. But the reality is, until you apply the knowledge, until you actually use what you've been taught in real world experiences, real world scenarios, real world conflicts, it's not that you don't know shit. I want to be respectful. It's that you haven't really learned how to apply it. Why? The same way that person, that book, that video, that podcast, that seminar, whatever it is you're watching, the same way you're looking to gain some knowledge and leverage, the same way I've referenced that person is a different, essentially an environment, has its own culture, has its own values, skill sets, and gifts. The environments that they've applied this knowledge to are equally diverse. Said more plainly, until you start to gain the wisdom and the real world application to what it is you're looking to be good at, you're never going to understand how the logic you're learning, how the information you have, the possibilities you seek, how it applies in an environment. because the same way that person's environment is different is the same person, the environment you'll ultimately go into where you think you deserve to be compensated at supreme levels is different and unique. Just because it works one way, and let's say in the business model, if you run a support business, the same way you run a support business with a staff of people that deliver whatever the specific service is, whether it's information technology, marketing, or some kind of food service, whatever it is, you could be selling the same hamburger, but just how the experience is different at McDonald's, the experience is different at Burger King. You have people coming in to buy the services, but everything about that environment, although it has the same machines, although it has the same ingredients, although it has the same bun and the cheese, how to make sure that that environment is successful is unique because of everything that comes with that environment. Where's that McDonald's located? If you're like me, you're from New York, it's probably very different than Wyoming or fucking Montana, right? If you have a staff of 50 people, it's very different than having a staff of 500 people. If your business has and serves a small community, it's very different than a business that serves a franchise. And none of these things will be learned to you, and you get into like scenarios that will be called economies of scale. You won't understand how to scale yourself upward, downward, or in any direction you might need that makes sense to be successful, because you don't have the experience it takes to understand how to make that critical decision. And the truth and the reality of life to those who are compensated and really are adaptable is that they get paid to help people and businesses avoid mistakes because they're so versed, they're so knowledgeable in how not just the machines work, but how it might work in the different environments, how it might work in small business, medium business, large business, how it might work in more intimate staff settings, larger staff settings, small capital budgets, larger capital budgets, small operating budgets, larger operating budgets, everything in between, the culture that's available to the type of workers you get in New York, the culture that's available to the type of people you get in Wyoming and Montana. All those things are unique to the experience and to the outcomes of what's being delivered, that you can't just take what's on paper or what someone says and believe that because you start to follow that model, it'll work for you. The environment you have as a person, the experiences you have that have brought you to wherever you are in your life, inclusive of why are you making this decision? Like, are you dead broke? And you feel like you need to do something to get out of a really broke scenario? Do you have, where are you in your age? Are you younger, older? Are you married, have kids? Again, the environment you're in right now and the set of circumstances that are available to you have direct implications on how the processes you adopt are going to impact you. And if you start to overthink and use other people's versions of success to try to apply to yourself without starting, taking the steps, and learning, you'll start to crash and burn emotionally and mentally because you're not going to understand why it doesn't work. And the skill set you actually need that comes with starting now and just, failing a couple of times and hitting a couple of bumps in the road, the proverbial obstacles, the ups and downs, the pendulum swings, the highs of the small gains, the crashes of the big losses, is that it teaches you about yourself. It teaches you how to manage your own set of internal processes that make you function. So when you hear people talk about the days you don't feel like it, the days where you're up against a lot of pressure, the days that seem overwhelming, you won't have the ability to manage that if you're adopting somebody else's model for success. So that's the biggest thing to me when it comes to what are you trying to learn? What are you trying to do? Over inundating yourself with too much information could actually break your brain, stop you and stagnate you, and you're losing sight of the most profitable skill set available, which is experience, which is wisdom, and wisdom gained through experience. So I went mad long-winded. The only takeaway you need from that is start now. Get some information, yes, but just apply what you think you need to apply as far as making the move towards wherever it is you want to go, and then let the lessons of taking action be a higher level of teacher than that of hypothetical knowledge based on somebody else's experience, circumstances, skill set, etc., etc., etc. Another significant point of emphasis based on a lot of what I've already said is, as I mentioned, I've been in business 20 plus years. I've been in a marriage 15 plus years, 25 plus in a relationship. I got teenage kids and all the other things that come along with being 42 in the world. And why do I think that that's significant other than trying to be somewhat relatable to show I'm human just like you? I said it. One of the biggest things I learned in business, when a business is going to make a really large investment, and all businesses do to ensure that they can scale and be profitable, or just be a business, you got to make an investment. They'll a lot of times go outside of the business, outside of the current staff, leadership, etc., to hire a consultant. And one of the biggest reasons you hire a consultant is because, as I referenced probably a gazillion times until nauseum leading up to this point, is that they have not just experienced themselves, but experienced themselves in many different environments. So they can start to predict, because the more predictable you are, the better. They can start to predict some high-level things of where you don't want to go. Some obvious things that if you do, you're going to fall off that cliff. And again, along the journey, you got to fall off a cliff, swim back up, find a way around, and get back to the top of the mountain to get to the next mountain. But there are some obvious things that you can avoid based on the logic of whatever it is you're applying. Like, I want to lift weights. I want to be a runner. I want to be in management, in business. I want to be a better father, husband, wife. All those things have high level principles that you should apply that you think are obvious, but don't come with experience. But the point of the consultant is they have all that knowledge, and what they're paying for is to avoid that cliff. Why? This is the effect right here. It's not the fall off the cliff, if you hear what I said, because when you fall off the cliff, you got to swim back, you got to go back around the path, and depending on how high that cliff is, what happens? Time. You have now just lost time. So people look to wisdom to help them avoid losing time. They'll pay hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars by the hour and millions of dollars over the course of a business deal, over the course of a business endeavor, when folks are trying to go to market, IPO, expand, hire, they don't care what the dollar amount is. They want to avoid losing time. So if it isn't obvious, you start now, because if you don't, you're losing time. You're losing time. You're losing time. And you don't, I know you know this, you don't get it back. And lost time is the most flagrantly egregious sin you could have. I always talk about sins of omission. Not doing what you know you should do, not starting when you know you should start, and that time is lost. And you'll look back and say, oh, because here's what happens too when you make some progress. And let's say you get busy for like a year and a half, 2 years. You're going to reflect and say, damn, I did good this last year or 2 years, 18 months, whatever it is. Imagine if I would have not wasted that extra year or 2 years. For some of you like me, it was decades. Decades. Don't lose any more time. You gotta start now. Here's of equal significance and paramount to the conversation of starting now. You deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. But what's stopping you most likely, and the reason why you keep trying to gain more knowledge, is because of all the obvious things on the end of the spectrum that equate to the frequency and vibration of, I'm not good enough, I suck, it's embarrassing, I'm going to look stupid, there's no way this is going to work out for me. And probably because you've started something a long time ago and you got punched in the jaw and you were just like, nah, doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel good. I agree. It hurts. It sucks. Nobody wants to look like a clown. But the more you stand still and do nothing, the more you avoid starting now, how else would you define yourself? Is it not clownish and ignorant and is it not unwise to not start? How could the fear of falling on your face, getting punched in the jaw, and looking silly in front of other people, who like what's so different about why do you care about what other people think? That's a conversation for another day. But you're really not gonna start and get what you deserve because of fear, anxiety, doubt, and being silly, as if doing nothing is not the same thing. How could you not feel like when you're home alone? This is why they talk about doing exercises in the mirror. Have you even looked at yourself in the mirror? I bet you haven't. I bet you haven't looked in the mirror and had a conversation with yourself and been real about what you are right now and how there's no way possible that you can be accepting of mediocrity for your life. No way. There's no human alive that raises their hand and volunteers to be as mediocre as possible. That is the alternative. Kicked in the face, punched in the jaw, falling off of cliffs, looking silly, getting laughed at, being mocked, being told you're stupid, on and on and on, to me, pales in comparison to looking myself in the mirror and knowing I never gave myself a shot. And if you're like me and you do the standard human things and you have a family that, as a man, I feel in a very traditional sense, I'm responsible for being the face of strength, of discipline, of providing, of security. Like you're gonna limit your requirements as a man or whatever role you play because of what it might look like. Let me tell you about my son. He always asks me some deep questions, man. And maybe I think they're deep because I'm his father. Whatever. I'm biased. I accept it. We're chilling. We're laying down on his bed. I'm talking to him before he goes to sleep, as I do every night. And he said, Daddy, I want to ask you a real question, and I want you to be honest with me. He does this all the time. I want you to be honest with me. And if you're 42 and my son's 11, and have ever been looked at a child who, if you stop being so fucking selfish, you could realize that child is a mimic of you, is watching everything you do, and becomes pretty much just like you. They're highly impressionable at all times. You as a parent are the greatest influence ever on your children. And as someone who didn't have a father growing up because he left, whatever, I'm not judging, I'm just saying, that void is significant. Anyhow, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to be honest. What is your biggest regret in life? And be honest. And I said, oh. I said, oh. And he said, is that too deep? I said, no. It just hurts. And I can reflect on all the times I started and stopped, the baseball dreams I had when I was a kid, the sports dreams I had when I was a kid, the lavish entrepreneurial dreams I had as I got into early adulthood, all the things I didn't do as far as going to college, all the degrees I didn't get, all the mistakes I made that are somewhat obvious. But I summed it up for him like this. I looked at him and said, my biggest regret in life is that it took me so long to realize that I deserve the most that I can get in life. And the only way to do that is to maximize my time. And my regret specifically is that in all the years it took me to realize this, I became a husband. I became a father to your sister and to you. And all the years I wasted not being everything I could be for all three of you, and the time I lost because of it, that I'll never get back. And whether you saw the pain consciously or realized the pain consciously, or you can appreciate that there's just a void and a gap that I can never fill again, that is and always and forever will be my greatest regret in life. So I share with you, if that means anything in any form of, whether it's motivation, inspiration, self-improvement, etc., it's that you owe it to yourself to not regret your time. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Stay rich.